You're listening to Your Man on the Street with Wisdom's Daughter and James Mack on 92.7 WKRA-FM, your station for information and inspiration. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to 92.7 Your Man on the Street. This is Wisdom's Daughter, and today we're going to be talking about Tyler Perry. Tyler Perry is back in the news, but not for reasons that you might think. So apparently Tyler Perry is fighting against discrimination at Hartfield-Jackson Airport in Atlanta, stating that flying while black should not be a crime. Tyler Perry is fed up with the local police at his local airport. The media mogul is accusing them of racial profiling. Perry alleges that they stopped black people disproportionately after they've already passed TSA. The movie and television mogul shared his thoughts in an opinion piece published on last Thursday in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Additionally, Eric Andre and another entertainer sued in 2022, claiming that they had been stopped at Hartfield-Jackson Airport in Atlanta. The lawsuit and Perry's outrage show a common pattern that people want addressed at the Atlanta airport. Wow. So media mogul Tyler Perry is not immune to racial discrimination. Now, I am not certain if Medea was in tow, but if he had Medea with him, then I'm not surprised that they may have gotten stopped, because Medea has been known to carry firearms in her purse, and she is not one to be messed with. Medea has been often known to threaten people and to let them know she's not scared of no popo.
That's it. I'm calling the police.
I ain't scared of no popo. Call the popo ho. Call the popo ho.
That's Medea. Anyway, so in the article, Perry analyzes the arguments put forth by Eric Andre and Clayton English. The two comedians claim that they were arbitrarily stopped in 2021 as they were about to board different flights that would take place months apart. Perry presents some data from the men's lawyer, Allegra Lawrence Hardy, before accusing these cops of approaching Eric and Clayton due to their skin tone. According to Tyler, black individuals make up just 8% of domestic travelers at the airport. That means that black people make up a wildly disproportionate majority of the passengers stopped by Clayton County Police, a staggering 56%. Those numbers are mind-boggling. 56%, and yet we only make up 8% of domestic travelers? I'm sorry, but the math is not math in here. Now, if we just put math aside for just a moment, let's just talk reality here. This is Tyler Perry. Tyler Perry is very well known, especially because he's from the Atlanta area, or he lives in the Atlanta area. And so, is this really just cops trying to over-exercise their power, abuse their power? I mean, come on, it's Tyler Perry. You can't tell me that you don't recognize Tyler Perry. Everyone knows Tyler Perry. All he has to do is do the voice, as I said. And again, I can imagine Medea pulling out that firearm, threatening people that they're not going to make her miss her flight. But in reality, this is crazy. But the thing is, this definitely seems to be a recurring issue and cause of concern, because if you remember a few months back in April, a retired black judge filed the complaint against American Airlines. Pamela Hill-Veal claimed that she was racially discriminated against by a flight attendant over, get this, using a bathroom in first class. So here's the story. Pamela Hill-Veal, a black woman from Chicago, again, a former judge, claims that she suffered racial discrimination by an American Airlines flight attendant. The retired judge, who was flying first class, reported being harassed by the attendant after using the plane's first class bathroom on February 10th. The complaint, which was sent to American Airlines and obtained by NPR, detailed that Hill and her family were flying first class from Chicago to Phoenix. She was stopped by an unnamed flight attendant as she was returning to her seat from the bathroom. Remember, her family is in first class. She's using a bathroom in first class. The flight attendant stopped me as I was returning to my seat and told me I slammed the restroom door and I was not to do it again since passengers were sleeping on the plane. Hill-Veal said in an interview with NPR, She said that she never slammed any doors, but when she tried to use the bathroom in first class again, the same flight attendant stopped her. Hillville, a retired circuit court judge in Illinois, as we said that American Airlines has contacted her to learn more about what happened, claiming that they strive to ensure that every customer has a positive travel experience, yada, yada, yada. But the truth of the matter is, it should not have happened. She says he began to berate me by pointing his finger at me towards my face and saying, "I told you not to slam the door. So from now on, you are to use the restroom in the back of the plane," while he pointed in the direction of the restroom in coach. Now, I'm sorry, but I almost have a little bit of PTSD because this happens to remind me of the civil rights movement with Black people being told that they had to sit in the back of the bus, or that they had to go into restaurants, using the back door. They couldn't come through the front door. I mean, the fact that this is still happening in 2024 is absolutely mind-boggling. She believes that the issue was racially motivated, and I have to agree, because she saw other white people who were doing the same thing and weren't treated the same way that she was. Once leaving, she said that the flight attendant followed her to her seat and physically tried to remove her. See, that's when you have a problem. Once you put your hands on someone, you're going to escalate the situation. It's not going to go well. And so in the complaint, Hillville said that the flight attendant told her that she would be arrested because he didn't like the way that she talked to him, and accused Hillville of hitting him. Now, it's a complete fabrication. As she said, she told him that I would never hit him, and she stressed the fact that I told him that I never hit him. Hillville said that she's been losing sleep after the incident and feels humiliated. And who can blame her? I still feel uncomfortable about flying because I don't know what they're going to say that I did in an attempt to cover up for what they did during this particular time. And so, we've seen a number of incidents like this. And again, if it can happen to Tyler Perry, it can happen to anyone, including apparently a former judge. And so, yeah, I mean, this is one of those things that we definitely need to work on in our country. It is happening way too often. And simply stated, people are getting fed up. And so comedian Eric Andre suing Clayton County over an airport stop. Okay, lawsuit alleges police singled him out. They searched passengers. They single out and search passengers based on their race. So back in October of 2022, again, actor and comedian Eric Andre alleged that he was racially profiled when Clayton County officers questioned him at Atlanta's airport last year. The comedian Eric Andre is suing the county, its police chief, and several people involved in the department's Jet Bridge Indiction program, as it's being called. The complaint, which was filed in federal court, alleges the 39-year-old writer and actor was singled out on the jet bridge and questioned on his way home to Los Angeles on April 21st, 2021, as white passengers were allowed to take their seats aboard the plane. Clayton County Police last year called the incident a consensual encounter. Wow, that's not weird at all. That's a very strange and odd statement. A consensual encounter is what they're calling this situation. Now, Andre, who is Black, they're stating that he was not targeted because of his race. Andre said the officers who stopped him were white, and nearly 3/4 of Clayton County's residents are Black, and 58% of the police department employees are Black, including Police Chief Kevin Roberts. A spokesperson for the Clayton County Police Department declined to comment on the lawsuit. The comedian told the Atlanta Journal-Constitution he was boarding a connecting flight in Atlanta after filming in South Carolina when he was approached by two officers who asked if he was transporting anything illegal in his luggage. So just to put this into perspective, this is not I'm going through TSA and I'm being frisked. This is not, I am going through security and there's something in my bag that shouldn't be there and they need to ask me some questions. These are people. Okay, and in this case, Tyler Perry, and in this particular situation, Eric Andre, who already went through security, they already got past TSA, they've gone through the machine where you kind of put your hands up, you stand there, and the machine goes around you. Okay, the dogs have already sniffed their bags. If there are dogs, they've already gotten the stop and frisk. Okay, I've gotten, stopped and frisked at the Atlanta airport a couple of times. I don't take it personal. I just, people are trying to do their job as I see it. However, I might feel quite differently if I was stopped further down the line somewhere in the airport once I've passed TSA. And that is apparently what's happening. I think I would feel quite offended if anyone asked me if I was transporting anything illegal in my luggage. Now, few, if any, airline passengers in the post 911 world focus on boarding their flight and are stuck in the narrow jet bridge would feel at liberty to walk away from armed law enforcement officers who unexpectedly intercepted their path, question them, take their boarding pass and identification. This is what the lawsuit says. Okay, I'm going to read it again. Few, if any, airline passengers in the post 9/11 world focused on boarding their flight and stuck in a narrow jet bridge would feel at liberty to walk away from armed law enforcement who unexpectedly intercept their path, question them, and take their boarding pass and identification. This is what the lawsuit is stating. Okay, once again, let me remind you, this is after they've already passed through TSA. And see, this is why I keep my boarding pass on my cell phone. I don't just go with a little piece of paper. I typically will check in online. I'll make sure that I have a mobile copy of my boarding pass because that piece of paper can be taken. In this case, it can get lost. And a number of things, but this is most certainly problematic. And again, the Clayton police are claiming that comedian Eric Andre was not racially profiled in the airport incident. Well, those numbers are going to staggering. Those numbers are hard to ignore, and I would love to hear how they would address the discrepancy. And so Andre's attorneys allege a pattern of racially motivated airport stops they say are neither consensual nor random. Well, it doesn't sound like it was consensual to have your boarding pass taken from you and your identification taken from you. Even when I go through the security machine after I've put my luggage, my shoes, my coat, my laptop, what have you, my bag on the conveyor belt, I keep my ID in my back pocket. I don't ever part with my ID. I keep my boarding pass. I do not put it in the little machine for fear that it's going to get lost. It's going to grow legs and walk away, or some TSA person is, going to want to exert their power and authority over me and attempt to take it. And interestingly enough, just in the regular realm of law enforcement, you have a right to remain silent. That is your constitutional right. And so you don't have to answer questions. A lot of people may not know that and oftentimes get duped into answering police questions. And that information can and usually is used against you. So I would imagine, don't know, but I would imagine that the same would apply here. Now, the CCPD jet bridge, this Clayton County PD jet bridge, interdictions rely on coercion and targets are selected disproportionately based on race. This is what the lawsuit is claiming. Andre is joined in the lawsuit by Clayton English, a fellow comedian living in Atlanta who says he was searched several months earlier in October of 2020. English said he reached out to Andre after seeing his friend's viral tweet after the April 2021 incident. I felt concerned in that jet bridge and I felt the need to comply, English told reporters. I felt completely powerless. I felt violated. And once again, if they are police and they're acting like police, then the same rules that apply on the road, on the highway, on the street should technically apply here. Would they not? It should also apply that I have a right to remain silent. I do not consent to the search. I do not consent to you taking my ID. I do not consent to you taking my boarding pass. And so, it's really important that we understand our rights as citizens. Police officers are to protect and serve. It doesn't often, many times doesn't often feel that way, but that is how it is supposed to be. And so, but what we're seeing is something completely different. According to the complaint, police asked passengers to search their bags on the jet bridge, even though they've already been through TSA security checkpoints. Interesting. Now, personally, I do travel in the Atlanta airport quite often. I've never experienced this in particular, and I would probably feel very uncomfortable. I couldn't honestly say what I would do. I mean, I think instinctively I would say, yeah, go ahead and check. I mean, I don't have anything to hide. Or I might ask, well, why? Why do you need to check my bags? What suspicion do you have? I've already gone through the checkpoint. I've already been cleared. What more is it that you need to see? Okay. So between September 2020 and April 2021, Clayton County Police logged the races of 378 of the 402 passengers who were stopped on jet bridges, according to the lawsuit. Of those, 56% were Black and 68% were other people of color, the lawsuit explains. Now, though those numbers seem a little bit off, but I guess out of the 378 passengers that they logged their race, they're saying 56% were Black and 68% were people of color of other races. So there's definitely, it would appear, okay, or I can say allegedly, some issues with racial profiling here. The numbers don't lie. That's the thing. You can say what you want, but the numbers don't lie. So at a news conference outside the federal courthouse, Andre called it humiliating and dehumanizing to have police officers pull him aside and question him. I was the only person of color on the jet bridge at the time. They singled me out. They asked me if I was selling drugs, transporting drugs, what kind of drugs I have on me. It was clearly racial profiling. Andre said the only drug he had on him at the time was the hair loss medication, Propecia. It was degrading, Andre said. I had all the other passengers squeezing by me on this claustrophobic jet bridge, gawking at me like I was a perpetrator, even though I had done nothing wrong. It definitely didn't feel like a consensual encounter. And this is why he is suing. Now, Eric Andre also discusses this incident on the Jimmy Kimmel show. I don't have a soundbite queued up for that, but I'm pretty sure that what he said is very similar to what he is saying now. And so, and this is why he's suing. I mean, it definitely appears like it was not a consensual encounter. And the question is, why are Clayton County Police stopping people, questioning people, and asking to go through bags on the jet bridge? So let's just walk through the airport. So you're sitting in the lobby area. You've already gone through the security checkpoint. You follow the signs that tell you, which gate you need to go to. In the Atlanta airport, the airport in Atlanta is huge. And so unless you're on JetBlue or one of those airlines at T gates, which is the terminal gate where baggage claim also is, you typically would board a train that would take you to whatever gate you need to go to, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, whatever gate it is. So you come off that little train, they call it the plane train. You walk down the corridor, you're passing shops, you're passing places to eat, and you're looking for your gate. You come to your gate, you sit down, you've got the kiosk there, you check the screen to make sure that you are in the right gate, because if you're flying Spirit or Frontier, chances are they've changed the flight, they've canceled the flight, they've moved your gate, whatever, what have you. And so now, it's time for you to board. You've stepped up to the counter. They scan your boarding pass either on the piece of paper or on your phone. And then you go down that ramp. Okay, so that ramp is called a jet bridge. I never knew what it was called. I just called it a ramp. So I learned something today. It was called a jet bridge. But it is very, very narrow. It can be very claustrophobic and quite embarrassing to have someone questioning you in this manner. And I would feel like I was being racially profiled. If it was me, I would absolutely feel the same way. And I would feel quite uncomfortable. And again, I might even feel quite rebellious. Like, what's going on here? I've already gone through the TSA checkpoint. You have no reason to find me suspicious other than the color of my skin. And I'm trying to figure out what about this encounter is consensual. I have been asked if I can be, searched and by a female officer right after going through the little machine where you put your hands over your head and you put your feet where it's supposed to go. And I was asked, would you like to go in a back office? And I said, absolutely not. You can do what you need to do right here. And so, it was very simple. She just kind of, patted down my leg. She put her hand across my back to make sure I didn't have anything in my bra. She had me pull my hair up, all of my locks, my 102, 103 locks, pulled the bump. She checked that. And I didn't feel any way about it, but I certainly wasn't going to go into a side room to have them do anything. Whatever you need to do, you're going to do it here where everyone can see, right? That is what I would call a consensual encounter, not certainly what Eric Andre experienced, nor what his colleague English experienced. And so you're listening to Your Man on the Street on 92.7 WKRA-FM Radio. Once again, we thank you for tuning in. And those of you who are listening via other streaming services, thank you so much for tuning in. We are here Monday through Friday, Your Man on the Street, from 1 to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. And so, of the hundreds of jet bridge stops made by Clayton officers between September 2020 and April of 2021, Andre's attorneys contend drugs were discovered only 3 times. Meanwhile, the department seized more than $1 million in cash from 25 passengers. Wow. And see, herein lies the problem, because once you give, it's just like being at a traffic stop. Once you give officers your permission to search, now they can search, they can seize, they can potentially plant stuff on you. And so let's take a traffic stop, for example. There are a number of videos that just popped up on my feed recently about local police officers inadvertently pulling over state's attorneys and pulling over FBI agents, some of whom were undercover, almost had their cover blown. And even after seeing their credentials, decided to completely ignore that and just do whatever the hell they wanted to do. And so, you get stopped by officers. They ask you for your ID. They ask you for your insurance and registration information. They run your tags. They come back to the car. They may ask you questions like, well, so where you headed? Where you coming from? And, typically when people are nervous, their instinct is just to answer these questions. Oh, I'm on my way home. I'm on my way, coming from here. Or the question might be, well, can you tell me why you stopped me? Sometimes you may answer a question with a question. Hey, so where are you traveling to? Well, officer, can you tell me why you stopped me? The officers are liable to tell you why you were stopped. They can't evade. They need to tell you exactly why you were stopped. Well, you were going a little over the speed limit. You have a light out. Your windows were tinted just a little bit dark. Your vehicle fits a description of a vehicle that we were looking for. And then from there, they may say something like, well, your vehicle is suspicious. It matches the description of a car fleeing a crime scene. Do you mind if we search your car so that we can clear you? This is one of the tactics that they use. Don't fall for it. You have the right to say, do I have to answer your questions? They should basically tell you, no, you don't. You do have the right to remain silent, because anything you say can and will be used against you. And you can exercise that right. Do I need to answer your questions? Because here's the thing. They cannot search your vehicle without a warrant. Okay. They have to have probable cause. It has to, they unless you give them your permission, and you can tell, they may say, well, let's go ahead and search you. You say you're not hiding anything. So let's go ahead and just search and just kind of get that out the way. And this way we know that there are no issues. No, you don't have to consent to that. You can tell them, I do not consent to a body search. I do not consent to a search of my vehicle. But the minute that you give in and allow them to do that, the more questions you ask, the more problems you're going to have. It's just that simple. And the fact that $1 million from 25, $1 million from 25 passengers, and only 3 times between September of 2020 and April 2021 were drugs actually found. It says in the article, this is attorney Richard Dean. He tells the reporters it seems to be a distinctly unsuccessful drug interdiction program, if that's what it is. And that's what they're calling it. They're calling it an interdiction program. I've never heard of this. And if that is the case, why aren't they doing this at TSA? Why are they wandering around the airport and just nabbing people right before they get on the plane? What appears to be happening is that this is organized largely to seize money from people. This is what the attorney for Eric Andre, this is what the attorney is stating, that this is not a drug interdiction program, but what appears to be happening is that they organize this in order to steal money from people. This is like, wow. Neither officer involved in the stop recognized the comedian or was familiar with his work. I wonder if they would have recognized Tyler Perry. He said one passenger and attorney approached him after the flight and criticized the encounter, telling him she didn't think it was right. Andre and English said that they hope to use their celebrity status to put an end to random airport stops. Well, they have certainly done their part in terms of bringing light to the situation, and with their lawsuit, they were traumatized. They felt belittled, and what they want to do at this point is to use their resources and their platforms to bring national attention to this incident so that it can stop. If Black people don't stand up for each other, who will? That's a great question. Andre's attorney said they are looking to get in touch with additional passengers who believe their rights were violated during airport stops. And so, again, this article is, a couple months old, but it still applies. If you have experienced anything at Atlanta Airport, if you've experienced stops such as this, speak up, speak out. Okay, and you can get in contact with the attorney. The attorney's name, once again, is Richard Dean. That's Deane. Okay, and so, yeah, if you've experienced this, let us know. Let us know on our social media streams, in the comments. Let us know if you've ever had an incident like this where you have been stopped and questioned and potentially had your personal belongings taken from you once you've actually passed the TSA checkpoint. Because again, it's really scary that these things are still happening in this country, and they're still happening to Black and brown people, and we're still using the excuse that we're not racially profiling. Then what are you doing? What are you doing if you're not racially profiling? If you're not racially profiling and it's random, and how can it really be random, right? Computers are able to randomly select, but humans, people, we have biases. Okay, let's just have an honest conversation. We have unconscious bias, right? Unconsciously, many people, if you were shown a picture of a white person or Black person and said, okay, there was a crime involving drugs, drug deal gone wrong, who was it? Most people of various races might actually point to the Black person. If I showed you a picture of a brown man in a turban, okay, in a dashiki and a turban, and I showed you a picture of a white man in a 3-piece suit, and I showed you a picture of a Asian woman in a 2-piece dress suit, and I asked you, who is the CEO? Who's the CEO of this company? Pick one. Well, you probably wouldn't pick the guy in the turban. You probably would assume that no, he's not a CEO, right? You may look at the Asian woman and say, hey, impossible, she's a woman. You probably go ahead and point right to the white male in the 3-piece suit. This is what is known as unconscious bias. It is something that we all deal with because our experiences have told us certain things about certain people. And so if I tell you, well, we have a serial unaliver on the loose, okay, who's just unaliving people all over the place, and he's been mutilating people and so forth, and I showed you a picture of a white male with hair disheveled, heavy beard, and I showed you a picture of an Indian man, okay, you would probably pick the white male with the disheveled hair, right? So yeah, it's something that we definitely need to work on in this country, and it's something that we need to bring more attention to. And hopefully this lawsuit will be successful, and they'll be able to kind of curb those practices and revamp that particular program so that it can do what it was intended to do. All right, in other news, we're going to be talking now about Naomi Campbell. And so Naomi Campbell has confirmed that she welcomed her two kids via surrogate. She says, controversially, they don't need a father. I'm a single mother from a single mom who had nothing and made it work. So Naomi Campbell is her take on it is, I don't need a man to have children. She was able to get pregnant through a surrogate. And they don't need a father. I don't need a man. I'm going to raise my children on my own. Very interesting. And we're going to talk about it right here on 92 point. So before we get into the story, can we just acknowledge how stunning Naomi Campbell looks? I mean, she has really aged gracefully. She is the epitome of beauty, a dark-skinned beauty, beautiful brown, jet black hair. I mean, Naomi Campbell is absolutely stunning. Okay. And a single Naomi Campbell, okay, quote unquote single, she's highlighting that she is single, has confirmed that she did welcome her two kids via surrogate, adding that they don't need a father like her mother because, her mom was a single mom and her mom had nothing, came from nothing, and she was determined to make it work. And Naomi Campbell has decided to do the same thing. And so she spoke with the Times UK. Naomi Campbell's 54, by the way. And as I said, she looks absolutely stunning. She did confirm that she welcomed both of her children via gestational carriers, which is another word for surrogate. And in her interview, Campbell self-identified as a single mom. Now, she has not yet revealed the names of her two children. She has a daughter and a son, which she welcomed in May of 2021 at age 51. I believe that was her daughter that she initially welcomed, and then her son at age 53 in June of 2023. And as I said, she has not revealed the names as of yet. But before the interview, Campbell was previously asked about conception of her oldest child, as the exact details around the child's arrival were not known. It was kind of a surprise. She just kind of came out of nowhere and just, announced on her Instagram, hey, I just welcomed my first child. And, interestingly enough, she is joining the ranks of women like Janet Jackson and other women who are having children in their 50s. And so if you are 35 and unmarried and feeling like your life is over and feeling, like you'll never have children because you haven't, yet had a child at age 35, I mean, because of technology, that no longer has to be a fear. Women don't have to live in fear and feeling pressured to just get married for the sake of wanting to have a child. So Naomi Campbell, she really kept quiet about this first child. She kept quiet about the child's father, how the child arrived, whether it was through adoption, surrogacy, or IVF. And she is now coming forward to share her story that it was through surrogacy. The thing is, a lot of people talk about IVF treatments. IVF treatments are very expensive. I don't know if you realize how expensive they are and how strenuous a process it is. IVF typically costs around $25,000 per cycle. It is not often successful on the first cycle. So typically, if you've gotten, successfully pregnant and conceived and had your child on your first cycle of IVF, congrats to you. You are certainly special because oftentimes it takes a couple of rounds. And with some couples, certainly damn near going bankrupt or spending their life savings trying to get through this process, oftentimes running out of money. And so surrogacy is kind of the next best thing. I mean, it just involves working with an organization or finding a friend or a relative willing to carry the child for you. Now, whatever the method at the time, we didn't know at the time when she had her first child, we didn't know. But again, Naomi Campbell has joined so many what they're calling mature moms, medically defined as geriatric mothers. I I don't like that term, geriatric mothers. I think it's a little offensive. I think we can come up with a better term than that, than to call them geriatric mothers. I mean, my gosh, it's depressing. But you have more women who are having babies in their 50s. Look at the brat. Look at the brat and her wife, and they are parenting their infants on their own. Now, according to the final 2019 data on births released by the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, some 1,703 children were born to females over the age of 50 that year. So in 2019, almost 1,100 babies were born to women over 50. That is mind-boggling. You not having conceived or wanting a second child in your 40s and your 50s, it's no longer a death sentence. Being infertile is no longer a death sentence. Many women struggle with infertility. It's actually quite common. And so it is nothing to be ashamed about. Oftentimes women are body shamed. They're made to feel insignificant. They're made to feel that they are somehow damaged goods because they're not able to naturally conceive. Now, the number of births, and this is according to the New York Post, the number of births to women in this age group has generally increased since 1997. And a lot of that has to do with the technology now. It's a lot more accurate than it was. It's not known how many of the babies from 2019, that 1,073, it's not known how many of those babies were naturally conceived, but it doesn't matter, considering, research showing that women ages 45 to 49 only have a 1% chance of pregnancy each month, mainly due to declining egg quality. So recurrent pregnancy loss, chronic infertility, a lot of that has to do with egg quality declining because of age. Fertility experts believe most are the result of assisted reproduction techniques, of which we now know Naomi Campbell participated in. So many of you may have been wondering, how is it that this woman at 50 years old was able to do this? Janet Jackson gave birth to her first child in 2017 after turning 50. Now, she has never disclosed, Janet Jackson has never come out and stated whether or not she used a donor. So I'm not sure we're going to get that information. Now, in contrast, Tracy Kahn, Manhattan woman, a single mom, had her first daughter at 49 and her second daughter at 51. Now, she's very open about how she had her children. She said they both, she used egg donors and sperm in both. And, she's very confident and proud of the fact. She's not ashamed to say that in both of those pregnancies, she used donor eggs and donor sperm in order to be able to have her children. Now, on being an older parent, the owner of luxury jewelry company Many Jewels insists she has taken the role in stride. That is Khan. Khan is the owner of Many Jewels. Now, Khan 57 explained late motherhood has been a game changer for her emotionally and physically. She said, if you're in shape, confident, and optimistic, it's the best thing to ever happen to you. She does admit that her joints get tired and that it can be challenging to get on the floor and play at their level, but she adds, enjoying my girls without looking too far ahead is the key to happiness. Now, indeed, Batsifin has noticed a marked increase in IVF patients over the age of 40. They include having thawing eggs that were put on ice as long ago as 2012, when the medical community said the technique was no longer considered experimental. And so, however, they'll treat patients who pass a stringent fitness test. This is interesting. And so this particular doctor will only treat patients who have passed a stringent fitness test supervised by their OBGYN in the specialist field of maternal fetal medicine. And so not all doctors are necessarily supportive of this. This particular doctor, Bat Zofin, he says you have to be sure pregnancy won't harm the mother. As they get older, pregnant women are at a higher risk of increased blood pressure, hypertension, diabetes, and placental issues. And so he's not just going to do this procedure on anyone just because you want to have a child and that's this particular doctor. He says they can have great egg quality, whether it's their own egg or provided by a donor, but I'm not in the business of injuring someone. And I think that is awesome. And Tracy Kahn, there's a picture here with her 8-year-old Scarlett and her 6-year-old daughter Eloise. And Kahn says that her 2 pregnancies were both delivered by a C-section, and she maintains that the decision was worth the gamble, declaring that the older mother bandwagon is marching on. And so, yeah, some are speaking out. I don't know if Janet Jackson will ever share, or will she do the same thing that Naomi Campbell did, Naomi Campbell, what she did, a few years after, because, her children, one child would be 3 years old now, and the other child would be looks like will be turning 2 potentially. And so, yeah, she's just coming out now and talking about what she did. So Naomi Campbell, again, she clarified that her daughter was not adopted, at the time, but she made no mention of a surrogate. And this is at the time that her daughter was born. Now, without providing any additional details at the time, Campbell had told Vogue that she wasn't adopted. She's my child. So she didn't want to talk more than that. Okay. She said she was saving the rest of the details for her book, which she has yet to begin. So Naomi Campbell is working on a book. Not sure where she is in terms of writing that book, because she's got 2 children that she's taking care of as a single mom. And even that, that's something to talk about. Would you choose to be a single mom? Having been raised by a single mom, having experienced being a single mom myself, I honestly, personally, I don't think that that's something that I would choose, just because having done it, it is wearing. It's wearing, it's draining, it's challenging, because when you're a single mom and you're sick, there's no one there to take care of mom. There's no one there to give mom chicken noodle soup and she's not feeling well. Imagine, having to drive your kid to school when you're running a fever yourself. Imagine, you are sick to your stomach and you're, back and forth to the bathroom, but you've got to cook dinner for your child. It's for the average layperson, the average working mom, it's definitely a challenge. I do imagine, and I'm reluctant to even call Naomi Campbell a single mom, because I'm pretty sure she's hired a nanny. I'm pretty sure she's able to hire assistance and help, and that's kind of like cheating. You don't really get to call yourself a single mom when you're able to afford, that kind of help. But she says in that interview initially, I can count on one hand the number of people who knew that I was having her, meaning her first child, her daughter, but she's the biggest blessing I could ever imagine. It's the best thing I've ever done. Now, speaking on her 2 small children, Naomi Campbell opens up about the anxiety that she's been facing. She tells the Times UK, my babies are everything to me. It's made me fear for the future. Despite her diverse dating history, Naomi Campbell told the publication that she was never looking for a father for her kids, adding that they don't need one. What do you think about that? Naomi Campbell feeling like being mother is mother enough. And I have mixed feelings about that, mainly because her children are going to grow up in a society where most households or our society still kind of honors the mother father household. And so she's going to be, when I say she, her daughter and her son, they're going to be in an environment where they're going to see their friends with a mom and a dad. And I'm pretty sure they're going to ask the question, well, how come we don't have a dad? Where's our dad? You're in kindergarten and it's parent teacher and only mom comes. You're in kindergarten and it's the school play and only mom comes. You're in elementary school and, you have a game, maybe you're playing softball or, I don't know, running track or what have you, and only mom is there. At some point, those kids are going to ask, where's our dad? Why don't we have a dad? Naomi Campbell goes on to say that I'm happy being a single mother. And she says, when she was asked if her children were born via surrogate, she did positively confirm explaining, I did have a surrogate. I hope for a better world for my children. They are 110% my priority. I have to be there for them on their first day of school. And she continues again to talk about her anxiety for her kids. Naomi Campbell says that she's worried that Gen Z has given up on having children and that it has shown by the plummeting birth rate. She explains, I've heard a lot of young girls saying that it's too expensive to have children and they may not want them. And I've said, you'll change your mind. You will want to be a mom. I understand economically it is tough, but my mom had nothing and she made it work. It's worth it. It's so amazing. She goes on to say that she feels, that it must be hard to be a part of Gen Z and even Gen Alpha in today's times. She said, we have to depend on the younger generation to change this world. I trust my children more than us to do the right thing. Now, Naomi Campbell also talks about some mental health issues. She said it's great that the young have finally recognized and accepted mental health issues. Young people feel comfortable to come out and share that they have a problem. Before you were just considered crazy or self-obsessed if you said, I'm going to see a psychologist and a shrink. And honestly, I still think there's a stigma with people who say, oh, I'm going to therapy. The first thing most people do is say, well, what's wrong with you? Why are you in therapy? Why are you going to therapy? What's, you got a problem? What's wrong with you? I think there's still a stigma, even though there are many reasons, especially in this post-COVID world, to see a psychologist, to see a wellness coach, to check on your mental health. I think there's still a stigma attached to that. And Naomi Campbell says that's ignorant. There's nothing wrong in bettering your quality of life. There's nothing wrong in going to rehab to recover. And Naomi Campbell even opens up about her own time in therapy. She revealed, I had therapy back in the day, but I feel like being in the recovery program has been a good therapy for me. I never felt alone. I have a great group and we all uplift each other during conference calls. I can get on that call and trust who is on that call. It's got me through. It's all I need now. And so, yeah. Paris Hilton and her husband Carter welcomed a baby boy via surrogate. So you're seeing this more and more often with couples turning to IVF, turning to surrogates. Adrienne Bailyn reveals that she easily spent over $1 million on IVF treatments before welcoming a son via surrogate. And so there's opportunity in surrogacy. If you are a healthy young woman and you are looking for an opportunity to give back, to help women in your community and to also make an income from it, that might be something to consider. Surrogacy might be something that you may want to consider. So again, very, very interesting how Naomi Campbell has come out a couple of years later to talk about how her children were born. And I wonder why she took so long to reveal and why she didn't feel comfortable at the time just coming out with it and saying that, yeah, I used the surrogate. Adrienne Bailyn spent over $1 million on IVF treatments. And let me just take a moment to kind of share with you what that process is like. It is no rodeo. It is no walk in the park. There are medications that you have to take. There are shots that you have to give yourself. It often causes bloating and weight gain, and it definitely can take its toll. And so I can certainly understand so many who are having concerns with fertility who are turning to surrogacy. Now, I wish this article had talked about the cost of surrogacy. I'm not really sure. I don't know what your average surrogate cost. But again, I just think it's amazing that you have, these women who are stepping outside of the box. They are going against the grain. And some may have their own opinions about Naomi Campbell electing to be a single mom. Knowing that one day she's going to have to answer for it. And I say, more power to you. I think that children are a blessing, and the fact that we have technology that can gift women the gift of motherhood who would not ordinarily have it, I think is awesome. I think that's great. You're listening to Your Men on the Street on 92.7 WKRA-FM. I am Wisdom's daughter. And again, thank you so much for those of you who are tuning in. We're talking about Naomi Campbell and her controversial statement stating that her children don't need a father. Her mom was a single mom, and although she struggled, she got through it. And Naomi Campbell is determined that she will do the same. She is she said that I was not looking for a father, for my children. That wasn't my motivation. I just wanted to be a mom. What do you think about that? What do you think about women that are going to sperm banks and getting sperm and doing in vitro and artificial insemination and other surrogacy and other things in order to have a child? But in Naomi Campbell's case, she is single. She does not have a significant other. She is raising her children on her own. She's raising a daughter. She's raising a son. Now, for those of you who have seen pictures of Naomi Campbell's children, you can almost assume, and you can come to the logical conclusion that the sperm donor is of Caucasian origin. Her children are very, very, very fair skinned, and so it just highlights a number of things that I've actually heard from people that work in sperm donor banks, that Black men, there's a conversation. Why don't more Black men donate sperm? What is the fear with donating sperm? You have women such as Janet Jackson, women such as Debrat, women such as Naomi Campbell now, who are having to rely on sperm donors, and there's not really a lot of choice in terms of what's available to you. Why don't Black men donate to sperm banks? What is the apprehension? What is the concern? Is it a lack of education? Are Black men thinking that if they donate sperm, they're going to be taken to court for child support? I mean, it's really interesting. I would love to hear, from Black men and Black women as to why why is there such a discrepancy in sperm donors from the Black community? Is there a stigma? Is there some form of embarrassment? What is it? What is it that is preventing Black men from, helping to give the gift of life? Just some very, very, very interesting questions. And so getting back to Paris Hilton. And so starting in 2023, it doesn't say exactly when, but Paris Hilton had her child. She was putting out there on Instagram that she's a new mom at 41 years old. At 41 years old. Okay, there's the date, January 24th. So we have the date. So January 24th, 2023, she welcomed her bundle of joy, or at least she took to Instagram on the Tuesday evening with a close-up photo of her gripping her son gripping her thumb. The photo was captioned, "You are already loved beyond words," with a blue heart emoji. And so it is really interesting that, you would never assume that, Paris Hilton would have turned to surrogacy, but she is being forthright. She did not shy away from sharing how she was able to have her child along with her husband. She spoke to People magazine. She said, "It has always been my dream to be a mother, and I'm so happy that Carter and I found each other. We're so excited to start our family together, and our hearts are exploding with love for our baby boy." Now, in previous years, Paris has been very open about wanting to become a parent, along with her 41-year-old husband. Now, back in December, a few months after the couple tied the knot, Paris had shared that she and Carter had begun in vitro fertilization process during the height of the coronavirus pandemic. She told People, "We're starting excuse me, we're starting going and doing it like a few months, or we started doing it like a few months in, because the world was shut down. We knew we wanted to start a family, and I was like, this is the perfect timing. Usually I'm on a plane 250 days out of the year, and let's just get all the eggs stocked and ready, and we have tons of them just waiting. And so that's awesome. Paris Hilton did what many couples are probably not able to do, may not be able to afford to do. But if you're young and you can afford it, something to think about, you may want to consider freezing your eggs because you may need them for later. This is something that is not often taught, especially in the Black community. I wish someone had said to me a long time ago that this was an option and something that I should particularly consider, so that there is no need, because egg donors, to get an egg donor, it's expensive. It is very expensive. Even surrogacy, these things cost. And you know I can understand Paris Hilton wanting to be a mom. She says she's on a plane 250 days a year. Now, the pandemic is over. So is she still on a plane 250 days a year? Is she taking her child with her? I don't know. But what I do know is that there really isn't, I don't believe there's really a perfect time to have a child. If you want to have a child, have your child. By any means that you're able to afford. Don't let anyone talk you into waiting until the perfect time. Children are a gift. There really is no perfect time to have a child. And again, even someone such as Paris Hilton, has found herself in a situation where she did have to turn to surrogacy after not being successful with IVF. And again, IVF is very expensive. I don't think a lot of people realize how expensive. And although we push IVF, we talk about IVF, it takes time. It definitely takes time. Naomi Campbell also stated that she's also wanted to be a mom. She told Vogue magazine that she also, she said, I've always knew that one day I would have a child. So very, very happy for Naomi Campbell. People are going to have their own opinion about her choosing to be a single mom, about her choosing to use a donor and using a surrogate. And, she needs to prepare herself, because the reality is there are some discussions that are going to need to be had. And these things are not necessarily easy for a child to understand. How do you tell a child that they have a father, but they don't have a father, right? And in essence, her children don't have a father. They have a donor. They have a man who gave up some of his seed to a bank that collected it so that she could have a child. But that donors are protected. And so there's likely no way for her children to, or no easy way for her children to be able to trace back and find out who the biological father is. And would that man even want to be bothered, right? I think there are certain rights in place for donors. And so, they don't disclose donor information. And is that going to rob her children of the experience of growing up with a dad? Dads are dads. They're not moms. They do things differently. And, I was blessed with two dads. I had my biological father. Later on in life, I had, my stepdad, who was still living presently. And yeah, I wouldn't trade that experience of having a dad. I wouldn't trade it in the world. I can imagine that without a dad, I might have felt quite lost. I might have felt quite confused. I also would have felt like I was missing half of me. And so it'll be really interesting once her children are older to hear from them what their experience was like just growing up with a mom and understanding that they have a dad out there somewhere, but there's really no easy way to find him. And he may not even want to be bothered. So tell us your thoughts. Tell us your thoughts about the racial discrimination that's going on with and it's not even really with the TSA, although we know that they also can be guilty of that, but it's really with the Clayton County Police that either contract with the TSA or what have you. Tell us what your thoughts are. Have you ever had any, an experience with that where you felt you were targeted because of your race? Tell us what you think about Naomi Campbell saying that her children don't need a father. I wonder if one day they're going to stand up and say, no, mom, we do appreciate you. We love you. We thank you for everything that we've done, but we did need a father and we would have appreciated a father. Who knows? But tell us your thoughts. Let us know down in the comments. Again, you're listening to Your Man on the Street, 92.7 on WKRA-FM Radio. I am Wisdom's daughter. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you on the next show. We're here Monday through Friday, 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. And Wisdom's daughter, out. You're listening to Your Man on the Street with Wisdom's Daughter and James Mack on 92.7 WKRA-FM, your station for information and inspiration.